An unwelcome modicum of light pierced through drawn blinds and blackout curtains. The room's occupant would find the natural light most unwelcome on that crisp Saturday morning. She'd had a long week interacting with others she really rather would have not been interacting with. This was to be her day, and the mood was set. Through painstaking effort, she'd set herself up for a day of isolation, a much needed mental reset, all along a layer of looping oak shelving. Candlelight flickered to make shadows dance, projecting tests of imagination onto bare blue walls. Across from an unattended desk, and nestled between a bed and a wall, the room's occupant was curled into a fortress of pillows and plushies, flicking through the pages of a novel read by dim lamplight. Surely, for a pure human, her method of reading would be damaging, but by the grace of feline optical prowess, the dim surroundings caused no eye strain. In these quiet, contemplative moments of peace, Chesha's brain could finally turn inward and drift off into fantasy worlds free from stress and responsibilities. If everything went the way she desired, her entire weekend schedule would be packed full of emptiness, not a care in sight. Then, much to Chesha's consternation, a presence much more irritating than any ray of light piercing a window could aspire toward burst into the room with a greeting. "Hey, Chesha, guess what I found?" said a fellow anthropomorphic feline, Chesha's roommate, Leopunny, in a singing tune. Chesha looked more intently at her novel and chose to ignore the interruption rather than address it. This decision would prove ill-effective, as 3 leaping thuds of footsteps later, there was a pair of glistening golden eyes framing a leopard face inches from hers. "Come on, I know you're curious," Leopunny said. Chesha let out a deep sigh, then continued ignoring Leopunny. "I heard that," said Leopunny, as she flashed shining claws to hold her lengthy leporine ears in a cup. This did draw a chuckle from Chesha, at which point she was fully aware that the game was up. She looked up to see golden grins highlighting Leopunny's face in a warm glow. Okay, Leopunny said as she leapt backwards about halfway through the length of the room, aided by her rabbit ancestry. "Check this out," she said as she whipped out a yellow, dirty-looking piece of parchment. "Oh, don't tell me that, began Chesha, but Leopunny cut her off. "A treasure map!" Leopunny beamed, continuing, "A wise observation, my friend. I scoured this map up and down, trying to figure out what it could mean, where it could go, but to no avail. But then, this morning, I woke up and spotted something on my back." At this, Leopunny whipped around and displayed her back to Chesha. "How did you look at your back?" Chesha asked, but Leopunny waved off the question and continued unbothered. "See it? See it?" Chesha did, in fact, see it. Leopunny's usual, evenly spaced leopard spots had been arranged into a peculiar pattern, resembling a nearby reservoir's shoreline with a small, red X in the middle of one of them. "So you want me to, on my day off, go on a treasure hunt with you?" "Uh-huh," Leopunny smiled. Well, Chesha thought to herself, the mood was broken anyways. But on the other hand, "I'll give you half of whatever we find," Leopunny said. Chesha very much doubted they would be finding any treasure. Rather, this was likely just an excuse for a day out on the town, so she interjected, And you'll treat me to tea and a can of sardines tonight? Leopunny's eyes narrowed, but as she walked forward, she extended a claw to meet Chesha's paw, and as she helped her up to bring her into a standing position, they each said, "Deal," in tandem. Chesha found herself regretting this deal instantly, as the cool Saturday morning had given way to a cloudless summer day complete with scorching heat, humidity, and even swarms of bugs. They walked together along a well-trodden nature trail just a few minutes' walk from their shared flat. On one side of the path sat a quiet country road, and on the other a sprawling expanse of nature lying just down a hill. "But why are we not just driving to the reservoir?" Chesha asked, as she stared at Leopunny's back, the alleged Exford treasure still plainly visible on it. "We be following the map, matey! Where's your sense of adventure?" Leopunny put on her best pirate accent. "I really hope you're not going to be talking like that the whole time." As Chesha's retort finished, the flash of a golden claw flew up to instruct her to a halt. The next thing Chesha knew, Leopunny was crouched down on all fours, running at speeds she couldn't possibly hope to match, before stopping very abruptly at what appeared to be, no, upon further inspection, it most definitely was a plastic bag on a stick. "A clue!" Leopunny said, licking her claw and sticking it up into the air to feel a breeze beside the bag. Sweat licked the bottom of Chesha's paw pads as she stood watching, exasperated. "Ma'am, this is a windsock at best. I think it stops a little bit short of being a clue," Chesha said. "The winds be in our favor! Come quickly!" Leopunny shouted as she sprinted off again. Through the wildflower fields, down tumbling hills, Leopunny would finally slow down and slip behind a graffiti-laden cement pillar, supporting an overpass. At once, Chesha registered where they were going. A river snaked through their township and emptied into the reservoir, which meant water. Chesha shivered, but the thought of the canned fish and tea propelled her legs forward to follow Leopunny. As she made her turn into the sandy riverside running underneath the overpass, though, what she saw shocked her. "What the hell is that?" Chesha shouted as she witnessed a, frankly, decently well put together raft with a pirate flag hanging off a pole. This was all fine and good and horrifying and everything, but one detail stood well above the rest. There was a full-sized organ atop it. Leopunny at the instrument's side. A minor detail in comparison was that she now wore a finely made leather pirate hat as well. "I can't hear ye from atop my vessel, landlubber. Climb aboard and we'll set sail," Leopunny replied, and as she did, she launched into a solo on her instrument to theme the boarding. Chesha did her best not to look down at the water as she felt the push off into the river and the wood began to creak beneath her. Involuntarily, hisses periodically escaped her as she dug her claws into the organ, which serenaded her suffering. This was a river she knew well. In fact, she walked alongside it to go to work every day, which made her wonder, could they really not have just walked to the reservoir? Its watercourses divided a walking trail from a busy highway, from which even now she could hear cars honking, and indeed, she saw a few faces turned incredulously in their direction. She could imagine the conversations happening inside the cars. Honey, there is a couple cats riding on the river in a raft with an organ. Dave, are you doing drugs again? Oh, what Chessa wouldn't give to be one of those people in those nice, dry, air-conditioned cars safe from the water. I'm anywhere but here. I'm anywhere but here, Chesha repeated to herself over and over again, shutting her eyes so firmly that her face strained with the effort. Arr! Why would you want to be anywhere but the open sea? Leopunny shouted over the sound of her seafaring tune. We are on! Chesha shook and hissed as they suddenly picked up speed and veered violently toward the shore before the current washing them back steady. A river, not the sea! Leopunny, however, was not listening. She'd spotted something abruptly and stopped, playing her tune to remove the pirate flag from its holster, revealing a paddle at its base. A fellow pirate! Make ready the main cannon! We don't have a cannon! Chesha shouted back, though she would not be surprised at this point to find out that they in fact did have a cannon. More pressing than their lack of armaments, however, was the fact that fast approaching, the pirate wasn't a traditional pirate, so to speak. That is a crocodile, Chesha managed to say. Nay, matey, that be an alligator. What's the difference? Well, a new voice interjected, alligators are significantly less likely to chase you down. We're more opportunistic predators, you see. Arr, thank ye for your kind explanation, Captain Echo, said Leopunny, giving a deep bow to a peculiarly gray and black alligator now half in their raft, causing it to list and take on water. Chesha's heart couldn't take much more of this day. Tell me, Captain Echo, do ye recognize where we are in relation to this spot? Leopunny asked as she leaned her back within inches of Echo's slightly open mouth. At this, Chesha gave a start and she panicked. The alligator had opened its mouth wider. She must be about to strike. Chesha could visualize her friend being dragged down to the depths by the vicious monster. She leapt forward and pulled Leopunny toward her such that they tumbled onto the floor of the raft together. Leopunny composed herself and got up, said, Hey, keep cool. And then she got back to her feet and brushed off, though she did break her cheesy pirate accent. Echo's wide assortment of teeth were arranged into a frown. I wasn't gonna eat her, I was just gonna give directions. Have ye no faith in the pirate's code of honor? Chesha's brain was close to short-circuiting, but eventually she opted to say sorry and kept quiet, feeling a peculiar mix of embarrassment and bewilderment. After giving directions, Echo swam away. Chesha turned to Leopunny, who in turn returned to her organ, and they cast off. It might have been the shock of her alligator encounter, the embarrassment, or even just a bit too much time in the sun, but Chesha's inhibitions were beginning to melt away. As the wind whipped around her fur and her eyes glistened in the sun just now making its halfway point through its daily journey across the sky, she felt a bit of that sense of adventure Leopunny was seeking from her to start. It was coming alive. But just as this change in mindset began to take hold, their vessel deposited unceremoniously into calm, still waters of the city's reservoir, and their destination was in sight. They made landfall on a minuscule sandy cay which, thinking on it, Chesha was quite sure had never been here before when she'd walked past it. Nevertheless, gold began to shine in her eyes. She could sparsely believe that this trip may just bear fruit. Of course, she'd hedged her bets on tea and canned fish, but the thought of glittering treasure surpassed any thoughts of minor prizes. And together they dug, and dug, and dug, and dug, until the sun was nearly set. Finally, though, 3 meters beneath the surface and after countless cave-ins, a treasure chest was found. This be our moment, first mate Chesha. Will ye do the honors? Leopunny bellowed. Carefully, excitedly, Chesha stepped forward. The chest was ornate, made with fine cedar and adorned with carvings which looked as ancient as they were grand. There was no latch to be found, just a lid to be opened. Her heart raced. One paw on the lid. She lifted it, eyes glittering with imagination, and... It's empty, said Chesha disappointedly. Leopunny, however, showed no sign of dejection. She gave a warm smile and threw an ostentatious arm around Chesha's shoulder. No, matey, we had the treasure all along. This is just a place to bury it for safekeeping. Leopunny rummaged underneath the organ and pulled out a treasure map. Holding it up to the sun, its back revealed Leopunny's best attempts at a drawing of the two of them standing happily in the sand, with the chest at their feet. She bent down and placed the drawing in the chest, before reburying it vigorously. Chesha thought to be upset for a moment, but when she spoke, a thought entirely different came out, accompanied by a yawn. You know, that was some pretty good treasure, Chesha said as she elbowed Leopunny in the ribs. This was actually a really nice day, thanks. Chesha gave a weak smile, and Leopunny returned with a proud fanged grin. The sun cast an orange glow over the glittering still water surrounding them. This was a fun little adventure, Chesha yawned. Let's head home, though. Leopunny's eyes lit up at this, and she leapt back onto the raft and went to work on the organ again. Arr, matey, and that be the beauty of it. The journey's but halfway done. We set sail for home! Chesha chuckled and stepped onto the raft. Her claws, they still clutched on for dear life. A few hisses might just still have escaped every now and again as the water danced below. But her head bobbed and swayed to the rhythms just the same as they chased the sunset together.